Draft's right around the corner. Let's take a look at last year's draft. Oh, what is up, Bengals fam? It's your boy Mike coming back at you with another Hoop Daily. What's up? Hey, draft's right around the corner. We had our last mock draft on Friday. Mock drafts happen on Fridays on the channel. We won't do another mock draft until next season. But what I wanted to take a look at, because you guys know I like using the PFF grades, I think, based on what I'm seeing on the Zach Taylor coaching staff and their draft, the way they like to draft, I think they use these things too. At the very least, they look at them and use them to kind of supplement their scouting, right? And here's why. Let's jump in. You guys know who they took first last year. It was Joe Burrow. Some interesting things you can kind of glean from the fact that they took Joe Burrow. Look, they were going to take him. He was the best quarterback available in that draft. Like, I don't care. People who thought Tua, people who, anybody else, wasn't going to happen. So there's not a lot to see here. Although what you can see is, and if you've watched the channel, all these mock drafts I do, you guys know that there are some rules that I like to look at whenever I'm looking at prospects, right? PFF grades need to have continually improved. Generally, when you see, from my experience, when you see guys go regressing in their PFF grades, when you move from sophomore to junior year or from freshman to sophomore year, when you see a regression like that, that really shouldn't be happening. Think about it this way. If you played high school football, imagine a dude coming in and playing really well his freshman year, and then his sophomore year, he's worse somehow. That would be a red flag, right? Like college scouts would be like, well, what? Well, how? Why? You're a year older. It doesn't make sense. Same kind of thing happening with the PFF grades for college, right? But you look at Joe Burrow. He went from a 2018 where he actually started for LSU, and he got he put up a 79.5 PFF in 2019. Obviously, huge year, best PFF grade for a quarterback I think they've ever recorded. Number one on the big board, number one position rank, and the Bengals picked him at number one. 94.9, 95 overall PFF grade. That's nutty, right? So, what does that say about their number one pick this year? Well, if we look at their PFF grades, they need to have been improving. Now, the two main guys, Sewell and Pitts, they only have 1 year of PFF grades, so you can't really use that. However, they're both number one per PFF, number one in their position group. Sewell is the number one tackle available according to PFF, and also Jamar Chase is the number one wide receiver available per PFF, right? Like he has the number one wide receiver grade. So, it looks like the Bengals have, at least the fan base has narrowed it down to the right two players, right? Let's jump over to their second round pick, T. Higgins. Now, T. Higgins is one of these dudes, and this is what I keep saying on the channel. You have to take into consideration the idea that somebody might be there that you're not planning on. Like if for example, if the Bengals take Chase, right? And then you're thinking, okay, we have to pick an offensive lineman, and chances are there's going to be an offensive lineman at 38 that they have a really good grade on. But what if you're sitting there and somebody like, a guy that you have the number two, ranked as your number two edge player, right? And he falls to 38. It's be kind of tough to pass on that. Same thing happened with T. Higgins. Now the Bengals lucked out because they really needed a wide receiver, and they ended up getting one falling to him. But if you look at this again, 2017, 2018, 2019, you see T. Higgins gets better and better every single year. He hits all the measurable marks with his speed and athleticism testing. Even PFF has him graded like number 25 on their big board. They picked them at number 33, right? And number 7 wide receiver available. They have a first round grade on him, 90.5 overall in his 2019 season. So coming off a red hot season, right? If you look at players that may be available for the Bengals in the second round, start thinking about you can start ruling players out based on this, right? Like, did they get better every year? Did they have a 90 plus overall grade in their last year that they played? Is it a value pick, or is this somebody that could be a reach? Because I think what it feels like to me is this at least in the first 3 rounds, the Zach Taylor regime, the Zach Taylor coaching staff does not like to reach for draft picks, right? Now you'll see here, they may start to do some weird things later on, and also the Drew Sample pick kind of, if they don't see Drew Sample as a reach in the second round of 2018, then I don't know what their board must have looked like, but to me, he was a reach. That's the only one that really jumps off the pages to me in the top 3 rounds for the Bengals, or top 3 or 4 rounds in the Bengals of Zach Taylor, kind of a head scratcher of a draft pick, which is Drew Sample. But tight ends take longer to develop. Drew Sample might still end up being a really good tight end. We don't really know yet. But if you look at their 3rd round pick, that was Logan Wilson, 6'2", 241, redshirt senior, which means he is older. But we're getting into the 3rd round where you can't, a lot of times you get to the 3rd round, those younger, early breakout age guys, they're gone, right? So if you look, but again, this matches what we're talking about. 2017, 2018, 2019, progression, getting better each year that he played. 90.5 overall grade in 2019, so a 90 plus grade in the last year that he played. His big board ranking is 110, right? So he keeps getting better every single year. He's got that 90.5 grade overall. Number 10 position rank, so the PFF had him ranked as the number 10 linebacker in this class, and getting the number 10 linebacker in the 3rd round, pretty good value there. Now you start to see some downsides, like they have Logan Wilson, a little bit of lack of athleticism and burst, and you see that sometimes on tape, right? It's at the NFL level, but he's so instinctual he can cover some of that stuff up, which is what you're kind of looking for once you start to get to the mid rounds of the draft, right? So Logan Wilson, and he may not have been on my big. I'd have to go back and look. I don't know if he was really the pick I would have made. I know that there was a lot of hype around Logan Wilson going into the draft. I liked this pick, but the next one was a little bit of a head scratcher with Akiem Davis-Gaither, then going back to back. Now these are two you can see. Akiem Davis-Gaither, he doesn't have that. He actually regressed a little bit from 2018 to 2019. This is probably why he was still available, even though he's the number 8 ranked linebacker for PFF. Why he was still available, he was a redshirt senior, so a little bit older. He had a little bit of that regression from 2018 to 2019. Really not a lot. It's like 1.5 points of regression. But PFF has him, hyper athletic. This is different from, he's a very different kind of linebacker from Logan Wilson because he's super athletic, right? And really he's not really like the kind of linebacker that's always in the right place at the right time, but because he's hyper athletic, he can get around the corner, bend the edge a lot, and he can make up ground because of how fast he is. He ran like a 4.40 or something like that.
Do you have any idea how fast I am?
Number 8 linebacker, number 67 on the big board, and the Bengals got him in the 4th round. So they're looking at value pick here. They kind of obviously ignored the little bit of regression there on the PFF numbers, but once you start getting into the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds, you kind of have to start ignoring one thing or the other. There are no perfect prospects, at that late in the draft. So if you look then at the next pick, Khalid Kareem. So Khalid Kareem matches a lot of what the Bengals look for. Now, he's not ranked position-wise. He's number 132 on the big board, which, on PFF's big board, they have him as a 5th round. So according to PFF, this isn't a reach, and I don't think it was either, actually. I think, you look at 2017, 2018, 2019, he keeps getting better and better, keeps going up the board. One thing you also see, there was a lot of kind of play given to the fact that the Bengals picked a lot of team captains last year, and I think, it makes sense that they were doing that. If they factored that in, that may have been like if they had 2 players graded about the same and one was a captain and one wasn't, maybe that factored in. But I don't know how much they did it on purpose as much as it was just another factor in their evaluations, and it could have edged certain players out over other ones. But if you look at Khalid Kareem, he hits a lot of those. He's got the right measurables, 6'4", 262. He measured as a pretty good athlete. He was a leader on the team. But he's just a steady, consistent player. You don't get a lot of flash plays, right? And if you would have, he would have gone early. It wouldn't have been there for them. So if you look at that makes sense to me, right? Like why they would go Khalid Kareem. I think, I did a video I did a video on the channel earlier on where I went through and said, you know, do I agree with the, you know, kind of redrafting the 2020 draft? And Khalid Kareem was the only one that I actually said, you know, I would stick with Khalid Kareem at this spot. You know, I don't think that there was a better option available. But looking at sixth round, you go Akiem Dedji. This one actually breaks the mold a little bit, but you get into the sixth round, you kind of have to. But if you look at, you know, 163 on the big board, fifth round projection from PFF. So PFF does not think that he's that this is a reach, right? He says he's athletic enough to play the position. 6'4", 302. He reads more as a guard to me. And you know how this offense, the outside, the wide zone run scheme, you need athletic guards, right? The only problem here is, you know, his best season for PFF was actually in 2017, and then he actually, you know, he regressed from 2017 to 2018, and his PFF score went down to 64.6. You don't want to see that kind of regression. Now, there could be lots of reasons for that. I haven't went to look. Maybe they played him out of position in 2018, but you know, in 2019, you can see he gave up the same amount of sacks in 2018 as 2019. He gave up one less hit, a lot less hurries, though. Those are the kind of, you know, he did improve slightly from 2018 to 2019, but he didn't get back to that 2017 number. So, you know, this is a little bit of a project, but in the sixth round, you got to take projects, right? So you're starting, like, you can see how the thought process might go into picking, you know, some of these players. And then you look at the seventh round, you obviously have Marcus Bailey, and this is where you can kind of take flyers on guys, obviously in the seventh round. But Marcus Bailey ticks off a lot of the boxes, except he had a regressive season, but it's not really a regressive season. He was getting better from 2017 to 2018. His PFF grade improved, and then 2019 he got hurt, right? He could have ended up posting a better grade than that. He only played 163 snaps in 2019, but in 2019, you know, he still put up. He was starting to put up really good numbers. He's very athletic, kind of one of these smaller pass defending linebackers, and he just you know, with these ACL injuries, you don't know what you're getting, right? But in the seventh round, you can take a shot on these guys, and that's why you see in my mock drafts a lot of times I'll say that, you know what, you can throw some of these question marks out the window here, because at the end of the day, a lot of teams end up, you know, cutting their seventh round picks anyway. So if he works out, he works out, but I just wanted to go through PFF, kind of give you guys a little bit of a perspective of what you may be looking at whenever you're looking at specific rounds, and what players need to go there and what the Bengals are looking for. I think later on in a week, I'm going to go ahead and do a video where I use this information, and maybe tomorrow, where I use this information to try to predict, you know, where they may go in the drafts, kind of narrow it down to certain players that match these criteria for how the Bengals look to draft players, right? So thanks for sticking around all the interviews last week. Keep up the comments in the comment section. Like, subscribe, share all this stuff. Hey, I'm gonna leave it with that. You guys have been awesome. I've been Mike. This has been Who Daily. See you.